America's Voice family.
Are you on Gettr yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored.
And it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Gettr app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Gettr.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Gettr.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Gettr chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Gettr friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth,
And we're doing it on Gettr
Every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Gettr app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community. Good evening, America. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C. in the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. You know this Wired to Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News, and you can point your camera at that QR code right now or go to Wired2Fishcoffee.com. Get a fantastic 10% discount on all of their great blends of coffee or their great mugs, a Just the News mug. Go check that out. All you got to do is use the promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout. All right, we're going to start tonight with two accountability stories that we've been chronicling on this network and at Just the News for over a year. The first involves the agency that serves our veterans, the Veterans Affairs Department. Remember last year when Joe Biden ran to Congress saying we're accidentally out of money, we need billions of emergency appropriations or we won't be able to serve our veterans, and Congress, of course, ponied up the money. Today, the Inspector General, the chief watchdog of the VA, said, well, that crisis was pretty manufactured. First off, bad bungling accounting for years left the agency unable to know really how much money it had left. And then in some of the money they got from Congress, it turns out, according to the Inspector General, the agency probably didn't need the money. They didn't know they had it. They just weren't looking in the right places. They didn't know where taxpayers' money were for the most important people we serve in this country, our veterans. That is just one story, and we're very lucky in a second to be joined by the man who's already on top of fixing this, the brand new Secretary of the VA. Doug Collins will be with us in just a second. In the second big story, you remember Congressman Glenn Grothman and other members of Congress coming on and saying, tens of thousands of children who came across the border without their parents are called unaccompanied minors. They're the most vulnerable children that could possibly be in the hands of strangers in America. Tens of thousands that were lost track of by the United States government under the Biden administration during the border crisis. Democrats said, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. It's not true. Well, today, guess what? Homeland Security Secretary, Inspector General, that agency's independent watchdog, said, oh, no, it's definitely true. Tens of thousands of children were let into this country by the Biden administration, put into the hands of people we don't know and can't track. In fact, about 39,000 of the records for these children didn't even have an address of who they were left with. We couldn't find them because the government didn't even write down the address where they left these vulnerable children. And in very plain English, the Inspector General of the VA said, there is no guarantee there was no ability of the government to protect these children from sex traffickers, drug traffickers, or other heinous individuals because they simply didn't know where they were. Those are two stories we've been tracking for you. We're going to get to more with my amazing co-host, Amanda Head. I'm glad we covered those stories, and I'm glad finally the truth is in front of the American people. It's terrible stuff.
Absolutely. And along that same route, I want to talk a little bit about the FBI announcing that they have in custody an alleged top MS-13 gang member, and they found him right in your neck of the woods, John, in Virginia, as you were telling me earlier before the show today.
You ain't kidding, right in my neighborhood, actually.
I know it. All right. So according to the Associated Press, the 24-year-old suspect was identified as Henry Santos, and he was living here illegally just half an hour away from our nation's capital. And Attorney General Pam Bondi said this about the operation: thanks to the FBI, we got one of the worst of the MS-13 off the streets this morning. Virginia and the country is a lot safer today, safer indeed. And this news comes after a federal appeals court made a massive ruling involving another dangerous gang, Tren de Aragua, and that court yesterday ruled to keep the order blocking those deportation flights in place. So I want to finish with the media because we've been talking a lot about them this week, and this time let's focus on CNN. Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins was on with CNN's Caitlin Collins last night, and it was clear Collins didn't want to speak about the VA at all. Take a look.
To have this conversation, to add a reporter, and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
Caitlin, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't a part of it, and I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about and those who've been involved have talked about. But we'd love to talk about the veterans.
Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Caitlin, since you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people. In fact, one of your employees actually said, we're going to nail him. I have a question for you, Caitlin. Is that employee still employed? Are you really concerned about veterans?
And I should clarify, with two Collins on the screen there, the Secretary, Doug Collins, did want to talk about the VA. It is very clear Caitlin Collins very much did not. But, John, I think that our next guest is going to have something to say about that exchange. I wonder who it could be.
Day by day, my former colleagues in the traditional media are writing the obit of their profession, and that was just a great example. Congratulations to the Secretary for standing up for veterans and the reason he should have been on the show. And we're lucky to be joined by that very man right now, the Veterans Affairs Secretary, Doug Collins. Mr. Secretary, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
It's always good to be with you guys.
It's always good to watch you on TV, even when you're not on our show. I just love watching you on TV. That was a really extraordinary moment, and it's a shame for journalism, but you did the veterans proud in this country. So I want to start with this audit we mentioned at the top. You knew this was coming. You've been on top of it. You talked about it brilliantly during your confirmation hearing, but VA had a hard time for a long time counting for just basic dollars, right?
They have, and y'all have been such a good to be on top of this and following it. Look, this was frankly came down to more or less a political, I would just almost call it an extortion toward the end last year, because it came out between the time of the hearings and the appropriations process and the end of the year, run up to a shutdown. And so they just basically had no real accountability for what they're doing. The money, they wasn't sure where to get it. And so all of a sudden they just started asking for money in vast amounts. And the IG report simply confirms what most of us knew, was that they shouldn't have ever been asking for it. There was an overreach in what they were doing, but it shows something deeper, John. Now, this is what I want to talk about that I've been dealing with for about 6 weeks now. It's just a department that is so bureaucratically bogged down that it has trouble doing its main mission, and that is taking care of veterans. And that's why we're actually working very hard to streamline processes, to get better help in place, and to have budgets and numbers that we can be accurate. I promised the Senate when I was confirmed that I would never send a witness to the Hill that did not have proper answers. In fact, I lived up to my word. Just a few weeks ago, we had a hearing that was going to happen, and I couldn't give the answers that we needed to give to I believe it was to the House in that time. And so we pulled back the hearing until I could get that answer to them. I keep my word, and folks, I'm keeping my word to the veterans. We're going to spend your money wisely, and we're going to do it on veterans getting the health care they need and the benefits they've earned.
Yeah. Well, and sir, when the ledger doesn't equalize, someone suffers, either the taxpayers because there's a bunch of waste, or in this case, the veterans of our country because they're not getting the care that they deserve. I would love to think that this was not intentional, but then that leaves the door open for incompetence. Was it malfeasance? Was it incompetence? Both?
I would like to just answer, we're looking at it, but yes. I mean, I think this is a problem. One of the issues we've had here, and I think it's a lot of agencies in the government, and when Donald Trump was elected to make change in Washington, D.C., and that generational kind of change to downsize and to right size and focus our government and make it more efficient, one of those areas is that sometimes we forget up here that the money we spend is not our own. And the actuality, the sad part about it is, out of every employee of the VA or any government agency, part of their own money goes into the pot to pay them. and that's out of their taxes. And we got to go back to remembering that it's not just an endless supply, and we've got to be good stewards of it. And, you know, the incompetence or just lack of negligence is something we're looking at. I'm holding everyone at the VA accountable. On my desk now, I'm turning back letters and orders and memorandum. If someone is not, if there's an issue that we need to take care of, someone is going to at least be counseled or at least be, you know, asked to say, hey, let's do this better next time. Let's learn and not just keep doing it, because I believe accountability is so important.
Yeah, and that's what the American people, if you make a mistake, admit it, fix it, move on, and that helps American people, and I know that's what you're committed to. You took on a couple members of Congress defending the VA's honor when false things were said. You had something to say about Senator Tim Kaine and Congressman Scott over what you said are lies about the Chesapeake Clinic staffing. Tell us a little bit about what you found and what the lawmakers falsely said.
Well, while they were off last week, I guess they decided to get bored and go down to our not opened yet clinic, which will open. We're doing a ribbon cutting next month, which I'll be a part of. It's opening on the 17th. And look, they're so blinded by the dislike of Donald Trump and the majority of actually getting stuff done up here that they went to the clinic and they went in. They came out and did a political hit job, basically, on what they thought was going to be they get away with it to the VA, saying that we were opening a clinic understaffed. And then they tried to say, well, we said there was going to be 150 employees. Well, guess what, John? That's exactly how many were supposed to be at the opening. It's opened in phases. By January 26th, it'll have over 500 employees. They made it seem like by opening in phases, we were shorthanding the clinic and shorthanding the veterans in Hampton. That is a lie. And I call it a lie. They got offended by it. I don't care. Start telling the truth. Because there's one thing that happened when Donald Trump appointed me to be and picked me, and I was confirmed by the Senate to be the VA. There are two things you do not do. You do not scare my veterans, and you do not scare my employees. They did both. They got what was coming. And look, if they want to continue to lie or say, well, they actually said the secretary confirmed what we said, 150. Yeah, but you know what also confirmed? Confirmed that you were not being truthful with the American people when you told and tell them that this is the way clinics open in phases. John, Amanda, I'm just not going to play that game anymore. The whipping post at the VA is closed. It's time to actually put solutions in. You either get on board or you like the way it is. You explain to the American people that you want to keep the VA the way it is when it's been on the GAO high-risk list for 10 years.
It's important to remind people you're not only protecting the veterans, you are one yourself. You serve this country with great distinction. So I want to remind the audience of that.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, sir. And I'm glad you brought up the Government Accountability Office's list, because as you highlighted, in the past, the VA has been one of the most poorly run agencies. And in my opinion, it's one of the most high stakes because it has to take care of our veterans. We saw a lot of reform under President Trump's first term. We saw wait times reduce, wait lists shrink, and there was a lot of good things that happened under that first term. What can happen under the second term, picking up on the progress of the first?
I think it's going to get it's going to get better. I mean, that's what I'm working every day for and going at it. Look, we're going to go back to the Mission Act statement, which actually allowed and expanded the VA mission, not just within the walls of our facilities and clinics, but also into community care, letting the veteran get the care that they need in the way that they want to get it. Donald Trump was very much, his president wanted to make sure the veteran could get the care that they needed in the very way that they want it, but also combined with the VA that is there to help them if they need it. So it's a choice. And as we look at this, that gives the veteran the access to better health. And we're going to talk about preventive health coming forward. We're going to talk about benefits. But the big thing that we're going to look at is we're going to look at a system that seemed to be feeding on itself more than it actually was giving to the veteran. And so when we look at the GAO report, it says we're on a high risk list. That's been 10 years. The previous administration put tens of billions of dollars and tens of thousands of employees into the system. But as you just talked about wait times and backlogs, they either stayed the same or got worse, especially in the backlog. When you did all that, I just ask a simple question. If throwing money in employees is the answer, then why didn't it work? Well, why didn't it work? I suppose it was just that. It was just throwing money and people at a problem instead of actually examining how we best can do our job.
Yeah, what a common sense idea. Just get the job done. Sir, real quick, we've got about 20 seconds left. You met with the Comptroller General. There's a good chance with the work you're doing, you might be able to get the VA off the list before your tenure's up, right?
I hope so. Hey, look, my promise is do what Donald Trump told me to do. That's take care of veterans. We're going to do that every way we can.
Yeah, I think they know that, and they saw that firsthand at the White House with the great ceremony you had with the president recently. Yeah. Sir, great honor to have you on. Thanks. I know how busy you are. What a great honor to have you on and get a great update from you. Thanks so much.
It's always good to be with y'all. Take care.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much. Wow, what a great interview. All right, folks, coming up, we got the chance to sit down with Congresswoman Mary Miller today, who was at President Trump's Women's History event yesterday. You saw that here live on Real America's Voice. We're going to talk to her about that and a whole lot more, including two very important pieces of legislation she has brought to the floor. We'll let you have all that in just a minute after this commercial break. Hey America, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning, and now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. That's important, right? Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. Now, if you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team are going to help you find the right plan for you. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code JUSTNEWS. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise, everybody. One of the main issues that President Trump drew voters to the polls on was protecting women. Yes, the left doesn't like to admit it, but central to the president's campaign was getting biological men out of women's spaces like women's sports and women's restrooms and locker rooms. It's crazy that we even have to say that in 2025, but here we are. And joining us now is one of the members of Congress who shares President Trump's vision on that, Congresswoman Mary Miller from Illinois. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. President Trump had a lot of high praise for you and your efforts yesterday in the Oval Office for the Women's History Month event. Tell us about it.
Well, he made gracious comments, but he's the one that should actually be commended for hosting the event and for highlighting the importance that women have played in our country and today in our society. And one thing I love about President Trump is he's authentic. He has not remade himself to run for office. If you look at President Trump's record, he's always recognized the accomplishments and abilities of women, and he's used them in his organization and in hiring and in his real estate business. And so yesterday he was, recognizing us, and it was great after 4 years of Biden and his people trying to erase women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. And there were so many powerful women in the room. It's a reminder of how much the Republican Party has expanded to all these great leaders and great women across the cabinet, across the Congress. And one of the missions they had is taking President Trump's executive orders and codifying them into law. I know you're doing an important part of that with the Keep Our Girls Safe Act. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that and how that takes the president's EO and makes it a permanent law.
Right. Well, it's very important to me because I believe the first role of the government is to protect the people, which is what President Trump's doing on day one. He made executive orders and started to, secure our border and deport illegal criminals, but also to protect our girls in their private spaces. So I want to make sure President Trump's executive orders are codified into law. Yesterday, I introduced Defining Male and Female Act, which is obviously going to be based on science and biology. And today we introduced the Keeping Our Girls Safe Act, which will make schools comply with the executive orders that boys and men are not allowed in their safe and private spaces, or they're going to lose their federal funding.
Wow, that's huge.
Well, and you take that one step further. If they use their federal funding, I'm sure the argument is, well, we can get private grants, we can get donations from private citizens, but this is one of those 80-20, 90-10 issues. So I just don't know how big the coffers are from the private sector to fund schools like this. So it kind of seems like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, from the Democrats' standpoint, they're doubling down on this issue, and which is fine with me. I want them to lose, but the American people are fully opposed to males being in girls' athletics, ruining girls' athletics, by the way, and being in their private spaces. And we had an incident in Illinois recently in Deerfield School where some 7th grade girls did not want to change in front of a boy that, particularly that day, he decided to identify as a girl, and they went to go get help. And instead, the administration and the teachers forced the girls back into the locker room to undress in front of the boy, which I really praise the family. There have been a lot of complaints out of that district, but that family went public, they went to the media, they went to the DOJ, and they filed lawsuit. And I say, great, we need more of that in this country.
Yeah, parents fighting back and protecting their children. That's such an important dynamic. There is a lot of work for Congress to do in codifying other parts of the president's agenda, getting the tax cuts renewed, getting spending down. Give us a sense of what things look like behind the scenes in Congress. And a lot of hard work going on, a lot of people working extra hours. Will that big, beautiful bill that President Trump talked about, will it hit the mark, you think?
Yeah, I think it will, because we have strong leadership. And President Trump has the American people behind him. I mean, what a heroic win in November when our country stood at a crossroads. Are we going to be free people? Are we going to have an economy that works for the people? And the American people gave him a mandate. And he is going on strong, fulfilling his campaign promises. And Congress is going to get behind him, I believe.
That's great.
Well, and something that a lot of election hawks have been paying attention to in the last few days, President Trump, his order on making sure that you have to show citizenship to vote in federal elections. Yes. How can Congress make sure that that is not only the law of the land, but that it is followed? And if it is not followed, what are the repercussions?
Well, we need to pass the voter ID law and, codify what President Trump has proposed into law. And I'm on the admin committee this year, and I want to work with admin to make sure that we have secure elections. And I think President Trump won all the swing states, but I keep telling him, don't rule out states like Illinois. You did great in Illinois, considering, but if we have voter ID law, and even if we have some great lawsuits forcing states to, and different areas to clean up their voter rolls, I think that will help our country immensely.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's another one, as Amanda was talking, 70-80% issue. People really believe this is just a common sense thing to do. I've been looking at the polling data a lot in Illinois, and it is a state that feels like after maybe a 20-year run of really deep blue politics seems to be coming back to its more centrist and Republican roots.
Yes.
Is there a moment, is 26, 28 a year where we maybe get a surprise in Illinois?
I think the issue in Illinois is that registered Republicans have not come out to vote.
Yeah.
And there were millions of registered Republicans that didn't vote in November, which is hard for me to believe. I think that they think their vote doesn't count because Illinois has a reputation for corruption. So, I really believe, passing voter ID law and proof of citizenship will help states like Illinois, but people need to exercise their responsibility as U.S. citizens and go out and vote. In Illinois, I think we had over 2 million registered Republicans that didn't vote, but I've been told, too, if just gun owners would come out and vote, you have to think that they would be Republicans supporting our Second Amendment rights. If just they would come out and vote, we could flip Illinois red. So I feel hopeful.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's true.
I mean, in a cautionary story, in the last few days, a state house seat in Pennsylvania flipped from Republican to Democrat because they had, I think, 21% Republican turnout. So that's definitely got to be remedied. I want to ask you, speaking of remedies, about the next budget battle. I know that sometimes it is the status quo and it's the means of operating where you wait until a few months before to make sure you got all those appropriations packages all set. I imagine you guys are already working on it ahead of time this time.
We are, and I'm more associated with the conservative segment of the Republican Congress. And the thing that I want to say is, Americans, please reach out to your representatives and tell them that they have to support getting spending under control. I do believe Americans as a whole don't understand the gravity of the situation that we're in. In light of our national debt, it is unsustainable. It's a national security issue. And I believe we're at 34 or 35 trillion right now, but just servicing that could cost another 100 trillion in the next 10 years, which would be our entire gross domestic product. It's completely, we cannot continue it. And for the Democrats to be trashing Elon Musk for, discovering the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been going on is unbelievable. And, everybody's always hated tax day. It's coming up in a few, April 15th, but we could never have hated it more than this year after finding out how truly abused the American taxpayers have been.
Yeah, the anecdotes, and they come out by the hour, are just so jaw-dropping. Even the stuff we saw yesterday at the hearing with taxpayer-funded journalism, and people say, well, wait a second, we've been paying for that? Wait, hang on, stop.
Right.
Congressman, I'm going to ask one question about something that affects Illinois, the city of Chicago, particularly sanctuary city, sanctuary state laws. Tom Homan, big win this morning with the FBI picking up one of the largest gang leaders in America. Is there a will in Congress to codify and make sure that federal funds are tied to punish cities that don't cooperate law enforcement getting dangerous illegal aliens off of our soil?
Yes, absolutely. And, I represent Illinois, but I don't want Illinois to get any federal funding if they're going to harbor illegal immigrants. And, I'm encouraging the sheriffs in Illinois and in my district to ignore Pritzker and to cooperate with ICE and Tom Homan. And when I'm traveling my district, I think Tom Homan is my constituents' favorite person that President Trump has nominated. So he's doing a great job. Yeah. And there again, the first role of the government is to protect the people. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, there are three issues that cross party lines, and that's safety and security, which that would be controlling the border and getting rid of the illegals, quality education, we want that. Return it to local control and let parents control it, and economic opportunity. So President Trump's a great leader on all three of those.
Absolutely. Congresswoman Mary Miller from the great state of Illinois, you do such good work up on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for being here and talking with us about all these issues. All right, everybody. Next up, John and I sat down with Congressman Eric Burlison yesterday, right after that DOJ hearing with NPR and PBS wrapped up, and he brought the heat. So we're going to have that after this break.
Welcome back, everybody. As Amanda said yesterday, we had a chance to speak to Congressman and DOJ subcommittee member Eric Burlison of Missouri yesterday. He had one of the great epic questions during that NPR PBS hearing. People still talking about it today. Take a listen to what we had to say. All right, folks, joining us now, one of the members of Congress on the front lines of that historic hearing, where public-funded media had to admit maybe there are more important priorities in America. Joining us from the great state of Missouri, Congressman Eric Burlison. Congressman, good to have you back on.
Always great to be on.
I think, yeah, in these hearings that went on, we saw perhaps one of the best cases made that we have to start making hard choices. You made this point, I think, in your questioning better than anyone. Is the era of public-funded or taxpayer-funded news sites perhaps coming to an end?
Yeah, I think that, we often chide other countries when they have state-sponsored news outlets, and yet we have been doing it in the United States. And, the question is this an arcane media? Like, why do we even need it anymore? There was a time when there was just, NBC, CBS, and having a public station maybe made sense. There was a time when there were a few radio stations, and so state-sponsored, content maybe made sense at one point. But today, there's so much access to information and news and all of these other things. I mentioned in the hearing, at one point in time in history, governments used to hire town criers before people could read and had access to, books. But we don't do that anymore. And so at some point, you got to ask the question, why are we still funding this when money is actually a scarce asset?
Yeah. And there were a number of comments today that raised red flags for me, because the overarching theme kind of seemed to be that the First Amendment was not something that allows them the freedom to allow Americans to speak. It was that the First Amendment was almost a blockade for them.
Yeah, that was some of the disturbing quotes that we've had from some people that the individuals who are running these programs or these departments, these entities. They really don't really have a lot of respect for the president. They don't have a lot of respect for the truth, really. When you look back on all of the poor reporting that occurred about whether it was COVID and the origins of COVID or the Hunter Biden laptop, they were part of the machine to cover up things for the left. And so I think the question is, when it comes to resources, we're $37 trillion in debt. Why are we sending money to PBS and NPR to fund, whether it's Sesame Street or whatever? At the end of the day, we need that money to support veterans' health care. We need that money to support Social Security. We need that money to support all of the things that are the key priorities of the federal government. And this is, I think, time has moved on from this.
You did such a good job of getting them to acquiesce that there were more important things in the budget we needed to save before taxpayer-funded journalism. I think that was one of the more poignant moments. Is that sentiment, which you drew out even from these media executives, is that sentiment widespread enough, at least in that House and Senate Republican caucus, to actually have a vote that eliminates the funding? Do you think there's enough support in Congress for it?
So given the thin majority, there's probably going to be one or two Republicans who will side with the Democrats to keep it in place if it were to go to the floor as an amendment or a bill. But things are different with Donald Trump and with Elon Musk. And so their methodology of cutting first and then telling Congress, it's been done, now you guys codify it. That gives a lot of political courage to members of our side of the aisle. So I think Trump demonstrates courage. That courage is contagious, and I think that if it's going to be cut, this would be the way to do it.
Yeah.
And the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Andy Harris, and I believe Chip Roy, the three of you have been having some hard conversations about a big, beautiful bill with respect to how much in debt we are and Medicaid reform. Obviously, that doesn't mean booting legal people who are supposed to be on it off, but there is so much fraud and so much abuse and so much waste within that program. What are those conversations like?
Yeah, it's disturbing that I'm hearing quotes from, there's been some senators, even Republican senators, that said they don't want to touch Medicaid. And look, I get it. Politically, it seems like it's sticky, but it's the responsible and the right thing to do. And we owe it to the American people. We owe it to having these programs actually work for the people that truly need it. We need to figure out how to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse within Medicaid so that it's available for those people that truly need it. To me, that shouldn't be controversial. And so that's the kind of pitch that we're making. And at the end of the day, we've got to figure out how to pay for these tax cuts. We don't want to add to the national debt and continue to grow our debt. We've got to figure out a way to be able to, if we want to have the big wins for Donald Trump, we're going to have to figure out, we may have to do some of the difficult things, but those are I think that they're the right thing to do. Yeah,
I think most Americans would, they've looked at that soon to be $37 trillion IOU, and they're like, we got a $37 trillion IOU, and say, that's enough, we're done. The American public are with Congress on this. They're with DOJ, they're with Donald Trump, Elon Musk, with Eric Burlison. How do you get those members in your party, or even some Democrats in the moderate side, to realize that this is a vote that they get a win with the American people, even if they have their own fears?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to pitch. Look, at the end of the day, you can make that pitch that no one is going to be who deserves to be on Medicaid or Social Security or any of these programs. No one is going to be or have any of their benefits cut. If anything, we're getting rid of the fraudsters so that those programs remain intact. That's a mess. I think that's a winning message. Yeah. We just have to do the work of getting that message out. And when you communicate that to people, I think 99% of the population understands and agrees. And so it's going to be hard, because when you got the left wanting to, lie and say that we want to cut disabled people off of Medicaid, or we want to cut, Social Security for seniors. Those are all lies, but unfortunately, that's what we have to overcome is some of the narrative of the left.
Yeah.
Congressman, I want to ask you about the signal scandal, as the left is calling it. It actually kind of seems to me like a test. It seems to me like a scalp test by mainstream media to see if they can get the Trump administration to basically pull a scalp because of Mike Waltz. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the media has tried to pressure Trump before. I think that this Trump, he's fearless. And so I don't think that he's going to back down to media pressure. And at the end of the day, look, I think that they ought to take credit. It was a successful operation. The strike occurred. There are Houthis, terrorists that are dead. That's a win. Did they make a mistake in having that communication thread? Yes. But you know what's different about this? Is they're not trying to cover it up. They're not using bleach bit to try to, eliminate or delete the data. These individuals have owned up to it, and they're going to learn from it and move on. That's what's different about Republicans and this administration than previous administrations.
Yeah. Own up, fix it, move on. That's what the American people want. It's a much easier way to get through things, and I think it will die down soon. It's also important, CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Agency, they actually recommended in December that all government officials move to Signal, so it wasn't like they were using something that they weren't being encouraged to use. It was already being used in a warning to federal workers back in December, which we got a hold of here. Congressman, it's always an honor to have you on. You're always such a clear communicator. You're on the front lines of some of the most exciting things that are going to happen in Washington in a long time. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Anytime.
Yeah, great to have you on. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, more right after these messages. Welcome back, folks. We are so lucky to have a partnership with the Wellness Company and its extraordinary Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Peter McCullough. He has had so much right about the last 5 years, and he continues to push this country to get to the right spot on public health, and we're lucky to be joined by him again. Doctor, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So I want to talk about some new scientific research that's been coming out. The more we learn about people who took more and more COVID-19 vaccines, the more we realize they probably have harmed themselves, not helped themselves. Tell us what the new science shows.
never have we had a vaccine where you just keep taking it over and over again, the genetic code for the spike protein. And the great concern is the body would get fatigued and just constantly getting these shots. And indeed, a paper by Perez and colleagues have shown that the body essentially gets tired of seeing this spike protein, and it switches from useful IgG1 and IgG2 classes of antibodies to useless IgG4 antibodies that actually weaken the immune system. And sure enough, people who took 5 shots, they were getting more recurrent COVID than people who took fewer shots. So the vaccines, as they're in their iteration of the 6th, 7th, and 8th boosters, it looks like they're counterproductive.
Oh, that's such a shame to hear, because people should be able to trust their doctors. If there is someone who's watching who has gotten 3, 4, 5, 6, however many shots, and they decide I'm done, is there a way for them to detox, or should they just kind of let their bodies reorganize and rehabilitate on its own?
Important point. It doesn't look like the body gets rid of the spike protein on its own. Today in the office, I had a patient who still had measurable spike protein, according to the InCell DX assay, 22 months after his booster.
Wow.
So listen, that's a long time to have spike protein in the blood. That patient has had a blood clot. He's had heart damage. It's clear the spike protein is dangerous to some. So we recommend what's called base spike protein detoxification. Wellness Company has the lead product that's called the Ultimate Spike Detox. 2 capsules twice a day, can be advanced to 4 twice a day. Make sure under doctor's observation, with the caveats that there can be bleeding, particularly in conjunction with blood thinners, although we use the 2 together. But patients need spike detoxification, in my opinion, for at least a year, and then reassess.
Wow. That is a big deal. For the first time in a very long time, we have fresh blood atop the public health agencies in America. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya taking over, being confirmed. What are some of the first few steps that he and other new leaders should take to get confidence back in the public health system?
Well, National Institutes of Health needs to check on conflict of interest. People are greatly concerned that researchers within the NIH are getting royalties from vaccines that are produced. And so it tends to, work towards biasing research. People have said, well, why were we fooled on the research on COVID vaccines? Well, the NIH was behind a lot of it. And if people have a financial conflict of interest, they're likely to become, in a sense, unreliable as independent researchers. So we need to check on conflict of interest. We need the National Institutes of Health, and it's been proposed that they kind of drop the COVID research as we conclude the pandemic and probably focus on spike protein disorders emerging after, the pandemic in conjunction with the vaccines.
And another one of those health agencies, the CDC, has a new nominee, Susan Menares. What are your thoughts on her?
Well, she's a PhD molecular biologist, and I've had a chance to interact with her. She's quiet. She's going to be much different than Walensky or Cohen. And, she's, strongly endorsed by Trump and RFK, and I think they're on the right track.
Good.
That's good news. So I want to talk a little bit about the 3 diseases that are getting the most headlines today: bird flu, measles, and drug-resistant tuberculosis. Can you give us your latest update on where all 3 of those are trending?
Well, in terms of bird flu, we've had the emergence of the D1.1 variant. Still greatly concerned that this could cause serious cases. All the farm workers now can get a free kit that gives the proper nasal spray and throat sprays, as well as emergency treatment from the wellness company. It's called the Prevent and Protect program. Please go to our website, twc.health. Get your free kit if you're a farmer. Have to show your poultry licenses and other information, but it's important, protect the workers. In terms of measles, we've had more cases in more states, and we're going to have probably about an average year of measles cases, a high number would be about 1,200 cases in a year. I believe we're just under 400 right now. One confirmed death. It looks like she was undertreated. This poor girl didn't get proper treatment on day 3 when they saw a doctor. Should have gotten antibiotics, nebulizers. She could have been saved. Remember, people should not die of measles. It's a mild illness. And then lastly, the drug-resistant TB. This is a concern. This is a concern largely of homeless individuals and migrants. Their TB testing, we now have a blood test for it, or the skin test, and then early multi-drug treatment.
Yeah, so important. So important. Sir, you have been such an innovator, whether it's getting those free kits out to our farmers on the front lines of our food supply chain, or getting all of us better prepared so we don't wait to crisis to hit us home, hit our homes. Tell us a little bit about the wellness company's great medical kits, emergency medical kits that get us ready before a crisis strikes.
You know, the big base kit, a lot of people ought to consider. That has everything in it. That's the tan kind of hard shell case. This is the array of more carry-friendly cases, the aqua blue home treatment kit, the black contagion kit, the red emergency kit, and then the forest green travel kit. But these are pre-prescribed medications, guidebook, access to telemedicine. This allows people to handle problems at home and avoid the emergency room or urgent care. Today I had a patient with a urinary tract infection. Good thing I saw her so I could treat her, but if she had a kit, she could have handled it herself and snuffed out the infection at a much earlier stage.
So important. You returned medicine back to the patient-doctor relationship and given us a chance. You really revolutionized telemarketing, telehealth for all of us, and we're so grateful for that, sir. All the things you do. Thanks for joining us today. Folks, Dr. McCullough and his team have set up a very special opportunity. If you want to get one of those kits, go to twc.health/justnews, twc.health/justnews. You'll get your wellness kit, and you can save 10% if you just use the promo code JustNews, or better yet, you can just point your camera to that QR code. You'll be in business in a second. Very lucky to have him on. What a great segment. All right, we've got one more good one to go. We saved a special one for last. Actor, filmmaker, author, and all-around great guy, one of my favorites, Kirk Cameron. Up next, he's here to talk about his brand new children's show. It's a big hit. It premiered today. We'll talk about that after the commercial break.
To have this conversation, to add a report.
You know that your fingerprint is unique to you and only you?
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's right. No one in the world has the exact same fingerprints.
You know what else is cool? A baby gets their fingerprints even before they're born. Whoa, no way.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? That's because God designs every part of us, from each hair on our head,
or scales,
right down to our one-of-a-kind fingerprints.
Whoa.
You know, I love that so much. We have certainly saved the best for last tonight, because what you just watched was from the new children's show, Iggy and Mr. Kirk. It premiered earlier today, and joining us now to talk about it, actor, author, and filmmaker Kirk Cameron. Kirk, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Always great to talk to you guys.
I loved watching that clip. Iggy is so endearing. Tell us about it.
So Iggy and Mr. Kirk is a brand new children's show. Contra the woke projects that are being stripped of what's good and true and beautiful for kids, we're coming back with the modern day Mr. Rogers meets Sesame Street. And it's faith-filled, it's Bible-friendly, and it is allowing children's imaginations to run wild and parents to be able to trust that a show is actually good for them. It's building their hearts and minds, it's imparting virtue, and it's not overstimulating. It's actually developmentally positive for children's hearts and their minds.
Yeah, so important. That's what parents and kids have been looking for a long time, and you filled that gap. We were lucky. We grew up with Kermit the Frog and Big Bird, but you're getting a whole new generation, something friendly.
Well, you know what we're so excited about is that we have the world's best puppeteer from Jim Henson's The Muppets. So this is somebody who's operated Kermit and Elmo. He's now got Iggy the iguana, and we have another creature named Culture the vulture. And Culture is always lying to Iggy and deceiving him. And there's a bunch of other lovable puppets, as well as we've got our own mailman Dan, and that's Lee Allen Baker from Disney's Good Luck Charlie. You know, Disney is learning the hard lesson that trust matters to parents. And when they go woke, they go broke. And now there's an alternative, and that's Brave Plus with Iggy and Mr. Kirk and 50 other shows that parents can feel great about putting their kids in front of.
I love that. What else is on Brave Plus?
Well, Brave Plus vets all of their shows to only 1 in 20 makes the cut. But you've got classics like Bob the Builder and Strawberry Shortcake. You've got Iggy and Mr. Kirk, of course, and so many others that are safe without a second thought. This is classic television with Christian values. It's bringing Mr. Rogers back, and we need it now more than ever.
Yeah, we do.
It's by Patty.
We owe it to that generation. All right, your kids are grown. You had the most extraordinary television career yourself, movies, everything. What gave you the inspiration to say, you know, I'm going to go back and create something for young children again? I mean, between Brave Books and now Brave Plus, you've created something remarkable. What was the inspiration?
Well, two things. One, I work with amazing people at Brave Books who are writing these wonderful children's books. Now we're bringing them to life in a creative way through a screen show. So we're redeeming screen time for kids. And secondly, I am now a grandfather. And so my little granddaughter needs to have shows like this, just like we had when we were kids. And in fact, I think this one is even better. The quality is amazing, and the lessons and the faith-forward nature of the show is something that I think parents have never seen before.
Kirk, something that I think is so refreshing, especially for me as a millennial, even the aesthetic of the show, it kind of resembles Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. There's a warmth to it. There is a certain look to it. Was that intentional?
Right. It really was. You know, Mr. Rogers has a cardigan sweater that he puts on. I've got a leather bomber jacket. And we actually leave the children looking into the camera with a blessing. And we say, "Good night, brave explorers. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and give you peace. Good night." And a little lullaby sung by Iggy as he falls asleep in his hammock in our treehouse. It's just adorable, and it's something parents can finally trust. If people are interested, just download the app Brave Plus on your smart TV, and you can watch the first 3 episodes for free.
Yeah, that's a great deal. Everybody should go do that. Brave Plus, folks, go check it out. Kirk, what is the inspiration for Iggy? I love the iguana idea. So actually, I thought it was brilliant the second I saw it. But where did Iggy start from?
Well, it came from one of the genius minds of someone at Brave Books. Kids love animals. Kids love puppets. And a little iguana, I think, is kind of unique. We've got Kermit the Frog, but now we've got Iggy the iguana. And he's all the girls love him. He's kind of getting a big head now, so I gotta teach him about being a teen idol. You know, that was my gig back in the day. Well, now he's taken the world by storm.
You got a lot of wisdom you can share on that front because you did it right.
I'm trying.
And how many episodes are out?
We have 20 episodes that are complete. That's season 1 and season 2. But right now, if you go to braveplus.com or you download the app on your smart TV, you can get access to the first season. Season 1, that's 10 episodes, and the first few are free.
That's so awesome.
I cannot wait to tell all of my mom friends about this. I know that they are going to love to finally have a trusted platform. And grandparents too. Kirk, congratulations on being a grandparent, and thanks so much for being here to tell us all about Iggy and Mr. Kirk.
Thank you both for bringing us the news. God bless you.
Same to you. Same to you.